Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone, and it's caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown!
Yes. 43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Galloway drives all the way to the hole, throws it up, got it! Indiana's got their first lead of this contest.
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
Now, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday, February 5. Thank you very much for being with us. Of course, another great lineup here today is Greg Rakestraw will join us in a little bit. The voice of the Hoosiers, Don Fischer, as well as we'll talk about Indiana's latest outing. Dustin Dopirak as well. Travis Miller from Boiler Upload. Talk about the Big Ten as a big weekend of games, just not in the Big Ten, but all the way around. In college basketball, some big-time games. Appreciate everybody jumping on the Andy Moore Honda hotline as well. Fred, John from WKRP in Cincinnati. Just a joke. I wish there was a WKRP still. Las Vegas Larry, Mike Shenanigans from a frosty but sunny southern Wabash County. John W. on from southern Brown County. Just down the road a bit. Donald down here in Georgia. He's in Atlanta. Southern Indiana boy originally. Doug, how are you, sir? He says he wonders if the season has driven fish to drinking. Drinking coffee, maybe. Drew here as well. This maybe no, I'm on the coffee as well. But yeah, not far. I don't. That's why I don't let my head get in it that deep. It would drive you nuts. Robert, how are you, sir? Sean saying hello. Therapy is now in session. Talk us off the ledge. Tell how Mike Woodson isn't projecting this program into a worse situation than when Archie left. Tanis, good. Hello from Van Vert. His daughter and fiance are coming over. Well, that's very nice for a little get-together. Serenity now, Fred says. That's probably the best thing for Indiana fans right now. Serenity now because, yeah, I wish I had good news. I don't. But then again, it's nothing that, for me at least, is not expected. As I've said, we went back with all the way with 13 games to go. Ken Pom had them projected to win one game. And that one game, well, that was this past weekend at home against Penn State. And while Penn State might have gotten hot, you cannot, even fans have, I would think at this time, have to stop just saying, oh, well, teams just get hot at Assembly Hall. No, it's not. That's not accidental. Not when you have time after time after time of where it happens, especially when teams that did it early in the season were not that good. So it is what it is. And it's just not good. And I don't see it getting any better for Indiana fans this year, not only for a couple reasons. Number one, because I'm going to be really surprised if Purdue does not make it to the Final Four. They're playing very, very well right now. This weekend was a huge game. They went into Madison and they get a 75-69 win over number 6 Wisconsin. And the Badgers tried about everything in the world to slow Zach Edey and company down, and they couldn't. Not only did Braden Smith have 19.6 rebounds and 3 assists, it was, to me, the addition of Lance Jones, the one guy that Matt Painter added to his roster. He brought in one guy. Well, that one guy, he had 20 points in that game. He added the piece he needed. And very wisely, he added the piece that he needed. So Purdue has the pieces that they need to go further than they have gone in 43 years, which was the last time that they made a Final Four in 1980. They've only been to 2 of those. If it's going to be a major upset for this team not to get there. But also, there were some other big games. Every time I think Kansas is just not that good, that they're overrated. I hate to say overrated, because in college basketball, there's just a lot of teams that are just kind of right there in that barrel where you can churn them around a little bit. But the Big 12, it's still where it is, man. Kansas, number 8 Kansas, they hit 9 of its first 10 shots, and they shoot 69% for the game. Now, that's not going to happen very often, but they beat number 4 Houston 78-65, and it was never really even close. I was watching that game, and Kansas just dog ran them, got out in front of them and stayed in front of them, and I was like, wow. I mean, it was a beatdown. It's the best for any team against a top 10 opponent since 2016. So, is Houston getting better? Very, very possible, because that's what good teams are supposed to do. There you go, Philip. Goose Fraba. You're going to need a lot of goose Fraba, but we'll get more of that in college basketball later on. Greg Rakestraw from the ISB Sports Network joins us now. And Greg, how are you, sir? How's your week starting off?
My week is starting off very well. My apologies for my tardiness. Sometimes dad duty gets in the way, so you're getting me at the tail end of drop-off line for this morning.
Always sounds like a very fun time. I can see a movie plot fitting right into that, but
it would be the most boring movie of all time if that was the case, Jim.
Yeah, a lot of frustration maybe. Just like college basketball is coming down to its crunch time. High school basketball is even closer. The girls are already past the regional level. The boys are right behind it as the end of their season is coming around, and I know that keeps you very, very busy.
It does. So obviously we're not a regional weekend for the girls. We got 64 teams left. A slight tweak in the format. Instead of sending automatically classes to the same regional, they're trying to keep teams a little closer to home, help decrease travel costs, help increase butts in seats. Now, frankly, in terms of the southern half of 4A, it didn't change. All are going to, Decatur Central, are going to Bedford North Lawrence. I'll give you the Southern Indiana example. At Crawford County, you've got a 1A game featuring Lanesville and Barre. You've got a 3A game featuring Washington Gibson Southern. And yes, Washington Gibson Southern both have to drive significantly to get to Crawford County. So I acknowledge that it's not exactly a perfect system. Then on the boys' side, you're down to 3 weeks left to go. And really, I think most coaches try to schedule this to where you have maybe 4 or 5 games left at most. You kind of leave some wiggle room to make up games if they got snowed out or called it out. And we only really had 3 or 4 days where that was kind of an issue around the state of Indiana. So for the most part, man, the hay is largely in the barn. Perhaps you're playing for a conference championship. Other than that, you are just trying to make sure your team stays healthy. You're reducing practice time, and you were getting ready for the sectional tip-off 3 weeks from tomorrow night.
Yeah, I was down in at Heritage Hills a few nights ago watching Trent Sisley and those guys play, and boy, I felt sorry for him. They had him at the 5, and they were just beating the living crap out of him. He ended up with a big bloody nose out of it, and that's what you get right now because other teams are doing whatever they can to stop the stars of these teams, and so there's a little bit of issues for that. If you're you talked about just trying to stay healthy. And that's exactly kind of what we're talking about. These other teams, they may not have a lot to play for, so they're doing whatever they can to win.
In Trent's particular case, too, he's a better player than his older brother, who had spent time at both Evansville and Wright State. But at the same time, he does not have the supporting cast around him that his brother did. His brother had a Division I athlete in the Sherry kid that's a baseball player. Again, went to UE. Once they leave high school, I sometimes lose track of where guys go, so I'm not sure if he's still there. He also had Murray Becker, who at the time was the program's all-time leading scorer, who went to UND and I think ended up at USI. But there was other better talent around the older Sisley brother in Blake than there is in Trent. He is a phenomenal talent. And obviously on Thursday night, you had the rare trilogy of Mike Woodson, Matt Painter, and Micah Shrewsbury all being at the same game. So, Jim, we joked it was like the old, Coke commercial that featured Bob Knight, Gene Cady, and Digger Phelps. I think it was the last time all three coaches were together like that in one place. And Sisley is just one of a handful of juniors that basically can name the school and they'll be able to go there. The senior class, by the very lofty standards we have in this state, is down from a talent standpoint. The junior class is out of this world. And so this is my friendly reminder. You want to see those juniors play the seniors? That will be on Wednesday, June 5th. They have announced the location of that game already. That'll be in Kokomo. So that'll be kind of the send-off game for Flory Badunga in the Memorial Gymnasium. But folks, put that on your calendar. If you can't make it, we'll have it coverage for you on the ISC Sports Network. But I get the feeling Memorial Gym is going to be rocking on that Wednesday night.
Yeah, that's going to be a heck of a matchup. Plus, now will that include the juniors that are not playing IHSA basketball like Jalen Harrelson
No.
and the others? That's a shame.
Well, that's part of the decision you make when you leave an IHSAA member school. This event is designed for Indiana high school basketball players.
Oh, I get
it. And I acknowledge La Lumiere offers high school courses. They're located in the state of Indiana, but they don't play an Indiana schedule. They're not a member of the IHSAA. Years ago, they used to be, and I'm not talking recent, remember, I'm talking 30, 40 years ago. That was an IHSA affiliate school. They elected to go the prep route, and so no longer is he eligible for playing in that game, which is a shame that he made that decision.
Yeah, and speaking of La Lumiere, they played Montverde not just the other night, Thursday night, in a matchup up in New Jersey in a tournament up there. And I'm not sure if you, with all that you have going on, if you had paid attention to that, but that was a matchup, kind of a weird place for those guys to end up playing in a regular season game, but they ended up playing up in New Jersey.
No, Jim, I care about Indiana high school basketball. That's where my passion is.
I hear you, brother. And that is rolling around the corner, man. And someone just asked, where did I go? There was a comment that I remember. It says that, there we go. Sean says he's seen a lot of ball holding in girls sectionals. And are the boy, do you see any of this in boys? Because this brings up the shot clock question. And it's kind of weird that he brings this up, because when I was at the game at Heritage Hills, I was just sitting here watching the game and wondering about a shot clock. I'm like, you know what? I think a shot clock would work in high school basketball now. I think it's time for that. But I know that there's a lot more that goes into it than just making the decision.
Right. So, so in terms of usually when you see that, it's at the end of the quarter, where a team says, you know what, I've got it with 50 seconds to a minute left to go. I'm going to have the last possession, especially if I've got the arrow pointing my way to start the next quarter. You're going to do that. You kind of see it as Carmel is playing much better. Carmel is 9-9, but they just beat back-to-back number one teams in Lawrence North and Fishers. The Sagarin had them 10 last week. I think they'll be in the AP top 10 when that comes out tomorrow. And they run such continuity offense. There's often 45 and 50-second possessions that they will have. That kind of conversation comes up. And every time this comes up, I give people the same spiel. The reason why I don't think it's going to happen is not necessarily a basketball reason. Again, you are asking schools to hire another person to work the scorer's table. You are asking schools that do not, and again, most newer gymnasiums have a shot clock built in because it's the great way to have the clock above the rim. But you're asking schools that don't have that to purchase new equipment. And, schools will tell you they're not exactly flush with cash these days. And so I think it's much more of a logistical reason as to why you won't see this movement for Indiana high schools to have shot clocks. I think that probably outweighs the basketball reasons. And again, the job of Indiana high school basketball is not to prepare kids to play college basketball. It is a wonderful added benefit. And Lord knows I talk about, what kids going to what college every time I do a broadcast. But that's not the primary reason we have high school basketball in this state. Just to put that out
I hear
there
that,
in
man.
Yeah.
What is up next for you and ISC?
Well, again, because the girls now kind of get to weekends only, it kind of means that I have a little time to kind of stop and smell the roses during the course of the week. So I get to wear sweats like most of the next 3 or 4 days, which is lovely. But then Friday, I've got 3 games. Saturday, I've got 2. And Sunday, I've got 2 shows. So I will put a week's worth of work together into about a 48-hour span before the Super Bowl on Sunday night.
I hear that. We're looking forward to it, my friend. Have a great week, and we'll look forward to talking to you again next week.
All right. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. Greg Rakestraw from the ISC Sports Network. Make sure you tune in there if you want to keep up with the Indiana High School. We've got Don Fischer, the voice of the Hoosiers, coming up next here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market. Sorry, Don, ran a little long there.
No biggie.
How are you, sir?
As well as can be expected.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Golf is not that far away. What a great weekend it was, at least.
Yeah, it's far enough away that I can't play at this juncture, so I'm still not thinking about golf. Oh, I think about it, but I can't play. I hate to go out and I haven't played since October. I haven't picked up a club since October to play golf. Late October, but nevertheless October. So if I go out now and if I'd go out right today and swing the club for the first time, I'd feel like I hadn't played for about 10 years.
I hear you.
And probably would actually, if I actually played a round, I probably played pretty good because I had no expectations. Of course, the second time I played, I'd shoot 95 or something. I'd really be ticked off. So this is the time of year where if I'm not playing or haven't played, I probably don't care really one way or the other at this juncture because it's not that important.
Oh, mercy.
Can you believe we can't? I mean, it's just this team is just a mess, and I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say.
And that's the issue is it's like, wow, where do you even start? Well, I know where you'd start, but start at the guard position, but it's just what is hard to believe looking at the stats just from the Penn State game at halftime. If you looked at those stats and gave those stats to virtually anybody on planet Earth, they're like, wow, they're rolling along, giving up too many 3-pointers, but they're rolling along. You got Kalel Ware, who had a perfect half, didn't miss a stinking shot. But wasn't just him. Renew was playing well. And it looks like, well, this thing is going right in the direction it should go. And it wasn't even close. They just got bamboozled in this. I mean, it was a half you would expect if you were playing on the road, if you were playing
right, here we go,
at
guys.
home, not on the road. Quality meats, bakery items, and now fresh seafood. Chop Shop Market and Table has the largest selection of in-house made products around and everything you need to make a gourmet meal at home. Or pick out a tomahawk steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by the Chop Shop, home of the Indiana football and men's basketball coaches shows. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday. It's February 5th. Don Fischer, the voice of the Hoosiers, with us. And Don, I know it's not ever fun coming off of the games for you that like this past one, as much effort as you put into the games. And sometimes it seems like you're putting in more effort than the guys on the floor. And I don't mean that as to crack on anybody, but man, that the second half in a game that you give up 52 points at home, especially in one in which you had played pretty well in the first half, at least we were talking in the break from a statistical standpoint. If somebody looks at those stats, they're going to go, okay, things are going in the right direction. You've got a guy who has been perfect from the field in the first half. He already has. What did Calero have in the first half? 16, 17 points. I mean, wow, what a game for most people that he had in the first half. Renew was playing well, but Penn State was giving up the paint. They're like, okay, we're not going to win on that, but we can beat you 3-2, and which is basically what they did.
Well, and think about this. Khalil Ware barely touches the ball in the second half in comparison to the first half. I mean, he has 17 first half points. He scores 8 in the second half. And I think a couple of those were off of shots that were missed, and he rebounded them and slammed them back home. It was not the second half was just they destroyed themselves with the way that they played. No energy, no fight, can't guard the 3-point line. We've seen this before this year. This is not the first time it's happened. We've seen this before, a team that can't put two halves together. The inconsistency with which this team plays this year is why they are getting beat most of the time, because they've shown that they can play some pretty sound basketball at times. But the lack of consistency in that regard is the most troubling aspect of what we're seeing from this ball club right now. That and the fact that you have to come out and have energy to start a ball game and to start a second half. And we have seen evidence of the fact that they don't do that all the time. It's one of those things that is befuddling, to say the least. It's a ball club that is really hard to read at times. You don't know what their motivation is or if they are motivated. And there's a pride factor involved here that I think is lacking for this basketball team. Yes, injuries have been a factor, but they are not the biggest factor. The biggest factor is this team's own personality. And this team's personality right now is not good, and it's not going to be getting better, especially with a week in which you haven't won but one road game this year. That was the Michigan ball game. And obviously, when you play on the road, you've got to develop your own energy level. They did that against Illinois a week ago, or a little over a week ago. They did it against Illinois, and they played tough. But can they do it again in what's going to be an environment that's that team's struggling too? And it'll be interesting to see how many fans show up at Valley City Arena coming up on Tuesday night, because without question, their team has really had a problem since Indiana beat them the last time. They were 12-2 when Indiana beat them the first time they played them this year. And it was the second game back, I believe, for Xavier Johnson for Indiana, who had his best game since he came back from the injury. And now he's back out hurt again. Not that he's the answer to any of Indiana's problems at this point, because he's not been consistent with his performances either. Malik Renew, I was stunned that he played in the game against Penn State, because when he went down against Iowa, I thought there's little chance he'll be back for the next ball game, no matter what kind of treatment he gets. And yet he gets out there and guts through the number of minutes that he played. He did get in a little foul trouble, and he didn't look as mobile as he normally does out there, but he gutted it out. I'll give him credit for just playing hard. But we got nothing from the bench in this ball game. Anthony had such a great ball game. Anthony Leal, we're talking about in the matchup against Iowa, and played great. He couldn't get it going in this contest. Anthony Walker doesn't play a second in the second half, if my memory is correct. I don't think he saw the floor in the second half, and he's been their most consistent bench player so far this season. So I don't know what's going on there. All I know is right now this team is in a world of hurt, and it's not going to get any better this week with a road game at Ohio State and a road game at Purdue.
No, especially Purdue coming off of a gigantic win for them, probably a Big Ten championship sealer, that I call it. They won at Wisconsin over the weekend in a very, very tough battle, which is good for them in a couple of ways. Number one, it shows that they can beat the tough teams, and that they are, without question, they're better than they were last year. So, but that's another discussion. Yeah, Malik Ware, 17 points in the first half, 6 of 6 overall. 1 of 1. He hit his only 3-point attempt. He hit all 4 free throws. And this is a game in which Indiana shot very well from the free throw line, and they're one of the worst in the country. And so in this game, actually, normally, I just said that you're not going to win when when the team is shooting threes to your twos. But in this particular game, Indiana was doing so well in the paint that may have been a different scenario had they went to Ware and Renew as much in the second half as they did the first half. And for whatever reason, they don't. Both of those guys, Ware had 8 points in the second half, Renew with just 7. Both of them had more in the first half. And for whatever reason, Indiana decides that they have to chuck up 10 3-pointers, which I understand, but they're only hitting 2 of those. They don't have the guys to hit those shots, and they were getting success down low. And I think that they probably should have maintained that, because it would have kept them there, because they were hitting free throws so well.
But here's the whole point. Indiana's defense was not good. I mean, can't guard the 3-point line again. I mean, and it's happened over and over and over again this year. There have been games where they've been able to stop 3-point shooting, and they've gotten out on shooters. But in this game, and give Penn State credit, they're not a great 3-point shooting team, but man, they looked like they were gangbusters in this one. They knocked down 12 of 22. I mean, and that's just people not being guarded. It's pretty simple. You've got to guard somebody, and obviously Indiana wasn't getting out on those shooters. And Jameel Brown comes in off the bench for Penn State. I think he hit 3 3-pointers in that contest. Am I right about that? Let me look here real quick. No,
4.
He hit 4. He hit
4 of 5, no less. He only misses 1.
Exactly. I mean, look at their percentages on the other guys. Hicks was at 4 of 8, 3 of 5 for Baldwin, and 4 of 5 for Brown. So the primary guys in their ball club that knocked down threes, they kicked Indiana's tail in that regard. And that's just not getting out on people. This team right now has no momentum, none. And they're going to have to rebuild that somehow, some way, if they're going to have a chance at Ohio State. And then, of course, they got to go to Mackey Arena on Saturday, where we know it will be absolute bedlam in that facility, and Indiana's chances in that ball game, even though they won there last year. This is not the same ball club by any stretch of the imagination, and it could be a bloodbath if they don't have the right personality going in that ball game.
I hate to say this, but it could be one of the worst losses. Indiana's already given up the most in the last game. That was the biggest point differential in I forget now what the stat was, but a long time. And it could be worse up in Mackey Arena, because Indiana's a wounded animal. and they see that. And unfortunately, Indiana is not reacted like a wounded animal in a corner. They're just kind of laying there, and you hate to say that about anybody, but man, it is what it is, and there's no point in lying about it.
Well, my hope is that they play like they did against Illinois. If they do that in both these ball games, they'll have a chance. But if they don't, they'll have no chance. Because you know that Ohio State's a wounded animal. They're 3-8 in Big Ten play. They're down at the bottom right now. And Chris Holtmann and his team, I guarantee you, will come up with a little fire in their eyes, knowing that this is a game they feel like they can win. So it's going to be a challenge this week. There's just no question about that. I think this Indiana team has proven at times that they are capable of rising to the occasion. But right now, this team can't afford to continue this kind of basketball if they hope to have any chance at all just to get to the Big Ten tournament, to play outside of the first day. That's the last thing you want, is to have to play in the first day of the Big Ten tournament.
Well, not only that, and if this were next year, they would be fighting to get into the Big Ten tournament, Don, and that would be probably the biggest embarrassment yet for an Indiana team to not even qualify for the Big Ten tournament. And I know this is not next year, but it's worth talking about, because that is where this team is. And it's like, wow, to not be able to even qualify for your own conference tournament, that there are a lot of questions that are needing to be answered.
There's no question about that. The questions are a myriad of questions that need to be answered at this point. But look, I'm not going to sit here at this juncture of the season and say that Indiana's through, that it's over. It's not. But this ball club has to understand that they can't take a day off in regard to how hard they play. They can't take a half off in regard to how hard they play. What happened in the second half of this game against Penn State just can't happen again. If it does, this team will – I mean, look, they're not going to be favored in any game the rest of the season, probably. Based on the only
one they were favored in was the Penn State game.
Right. And that's saying something about where we're at right now with this team, because Indiana's always favored at home. Always favored at home, no matter who they play. And granted, they weren't favored against Purdue this year, but it's rare when Indiana's not favored in a home ball game. And right now, they're predicting that Indiana won't be favored in any games this year, so the rest of the season. So this team has some work to do, and I think most of it has to do with looking themselves in the mirror.
Yeah, and for the Indiana fans, it's hard because they've been waiting. Indiana fans are, without question, to me, I know that there are, if not the greatest, some of the absolute greatest, because they stay there. Like right now, they're still there. They're pissed off, but they're there. Back in 2008, when around 2008, when this team was 6-25, they were there. So Indiana has so much built in and going for it. It is unbelievable to continue to see the inability to rise up and even be competitive.
Yeah, it is a problem. There's no question. Can Mike Woodson get this team turned around? I think he's capable of doing that, but we've got to see it. We've got to see evidence of it. And right now, this Ohio State game may be that evidence that we need. Hopefully it is. Because Ohio State's eminently beatable. They're playing poor basketball. Chris Holtman's team has struggled this year,
and he's on the hot seat.
Yeah, I mean, whether he should be or not is beside the point.
Right,
because he's had some pretty good years at Ohio State. It's just now last year was not very good, and this year it's turning into another one of those. And usually when that happens, you are on the hot seat, to say the least. So we'll just have to wait and see how this all plays out. All I can tell you right now is this game against Ohio State on Tuesday night, tomorrow night, is going to be hugely important.
Yeah, and it's a quick turnaround for this Indiana team, who must turn around mentally and get themselves not only in a position to win, but do it on the road where they have not been really successful. So tonight, Monday night, are you back at Chop Shop for another edition of? Nope. Okay, I thought that there may have been one.
Well, any time that the team travels on Monday,
that's right. That's right.
A road game on Tuesday, we never do a show on those Mondays unless it would be taped, and obviously we don't have to do that. We've had an opportunity to schedule our 15 shows that we do each year with the coach. We had an opportunity through November, December to put the schedule together without having to deal with the road games. So, at any rate, no show coming up tonight for Inside IU basketball, but we'll be back with shows the rest of the season on Monday nights starting next Monday.
Looking forward to it. And, of course, make sure you follow Don on the call tomorrow night as they take on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Don, thank you, sir. Appreciate you as always.
Thanks for having me, Jim. See ya.
You betcha. The great Don Fischer joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We've got more coming up right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're looking for a home, all right, man, get over here to the comments because there are plenty. The truth. Send him some money and some food now. Van the Pastor Man. Oh,
Morning,
Dustin
Dustin.
Dopirak, how are you, sir?
Good morning, Jim Coyle. How are you?
I cannot complain. It's unbelievable that the Pacers, rarely has it been the Pacers are, well, and Purdue is up there, but still the top basketball to talk about in the state. And they are just because of, that's exactly, Maxine. I agree with you. But just because of their even when they've been down, when they've had guys up, they've done things and tried. And boy, Indiana fans would sure like to have some of that.
Yeah, they would. No, I mean, I think just what it comes down to is IU's just bad right now. You know, and like that's not. Hold on a second.
But they're bad in a number of reasons too. Let's see.
They're bad in a way that seems not hopeless, but you're just not supposed to lose to Penn State at home.
Nope. Here's a great stat, which, yeah, I saw this as well. But IU is not even top 5 in the state of Indiana in D1 basketball teams.
Whew. That's just by record. Oh man.
I see. I got to pull up Ken Palm. See, are they still even inside the top 100?
Probably not.
Come on. Go straight to 100.
Somebody posted yesterday.
99.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Right in front of Rutgers and Michigan. How about that for the bottom of the Big Ten?
All right, here we go, guys.
Honda in Bloomington. Right now, get a brand new Honda with no payments for 90 days. That's right, 2023 and 2024 Honda Pilots, HRVs, CRVs, Honda Ridgelines, payment-free for 90 days. Or get 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMoreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty. Indy Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday. Appreciate you being with us. Brought to you by our good friends from Andy Moore Honda and Remax Realty. If you're in the market for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore, and her 2 decades of experience could be the difference between getting the home you want or not. Welcome aboard, Dustin Dopirak. How are you, sir, from the Indy Star?
Doing well, Jim. How about yourself?
And Maxine, doing quite well. It's we're getting close to spring, man. It's boy, this past weekend, for February, that's kind of nice.
Not bad. Heading in a good
warming
direction.
up, as are the Pacers. They ended at a 3-game skid. Pascal Siakam at 25 points as they get off the schneid with a win on the road, no less, down in Charlotte. Just kidding. Well, hey, you got to take what you can get. You got to take.
Yeah, no, you take the ones you can get. I mean, they've been. There's obviously been a lot of up and down as they've incorporated Siakam and also just dealt with the Halliburton injury as he's been on a minutes restriction. He only played, I think, 20 minutes last night. Still, I mean, he looks better. He looks a lot better, but I think obviously playing better teams, certainly Boston, New York, and Sacramento were not easy teams to play against when you're trying to work him back in. He wasn't great on Friday at all. Had some good moments on Thursday against the Knicks. But they had some issues certainly rebounding the basketball, playing any defense. Jalen Brunson was terrific. So they've had their ups and downs, but so it was obviously nice for them just to get Charlotte and get somebody they could get right against. And not, I mean, get right, but also just handle somebody. I mean, Charlotte's the first team they've held under 100 all year. And there's a reason why, because Charlotte doesn't have LaMelo Bell. They don't have Gordon Hayward. They don't have Mark Williams. And they're not getting Kyle Lowry. They traded Terry Rozier. There's just not a lot of offensive punch on that team at this point. And, at the very least, they made him pay for it. They made it. So, I mean, the Hornets scored 13 points in the first quarter. That's not supposed to happen in an NBA game. But that's where the Hornets are right now. So the Pacers took full advantage of that, got themselves a win. They got a half-game lead on sixth, for sixth place right now. They're still in that, in that sort of second tier, leaning towards the third tier with Miami and Orlando right now. But they're there, and they're still in a pretty healthy position, even as they're just sort of finally getting through this Halliburton thing and hoping to get him back to truly normal within, I'm sure they don't have a timetable on it, but they would hope shortly.
You mentioned the scoring, and I was laughing, or not laughing, but thinking back. I just finished watching Winning Time, a series on the Lakers, which is awesome to watch. If you haven't seen it, golly, it's great. It's not a docu-series. It's like a TV show, but very, very cool. But it reminded me of Paul Westhead. His NBA teams never gave up less than 100 points, not one time, which the Pacers are not quite that. But they've
been on that level before. Yeah. No, I mean, it's been better defensively. I mean, I think Siakam is a big piece. As much of an impact as he makes offensively, he makes a lot of impact offensively. He makes a significant amount defensively because he allows everybody to guard somebody that they should be guarding. I think at 6'8", 7, with the 7'3" wingspan, he gives them somebody that can actually defend a real power forward, a LeBron James, a Giannis Antetokounmpo. I mean, you're not going to shut those guys down, but he at least gives you somebody that can guard those guys that reasonably so. And that's made they haven't been dominated in the same way that they had been earlier in the season. Allows Aaron Nesmith to cover people that he has business guarding. Aaron Nesmith is a guy that really cares about defense and really gets after it on defense. But they've been putting up against guys he's giving 6 inches to, and he fights his butt off in those matchups. But he's not going to win them, when he's given up, 5-6 inches in an NBA game. You're going to just get posted up and get scored on. And for as hard as he fights in those positions, he still generally loses those battles. Siakam gives him a guy that can at least play those guys even and force them to take shots they don't want to take. And so that goes a long way. So they've been better defensively. They are, I think, 18th in defensive rating in his 10 games. So you can obviously go on NBA.com and play around with the settings so that you can say, okay, well, where do they rank in the last 10 games and the last 15, and get a sense for how things change. What they look like and how they rank. Just play around with that database. And so they are much better, since they've had him than they were before, and they were starting to get better in the weeks prior to adding him because they just made some significant changes there. So they're not a good defensive team, but they're not a terrible defensive team like they were, in the early portion of the season.
Yeah, and this is a time of year where they're trying to maintain their position as far as the playoffs with by adding Pascal Siakam, but getting through this portion of the injury stretch with Tyrese Halliburton. And what's with the giving the fans a heart attack in Charlotte, grabbing his hamstring like he hurt it again, just to mess with people.
Yeah, Ty can do that from time to time. He's a character,
which is great. To have personality like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's had a tough time with the whole thing. I mean, he really has. I mean, we got him on, and the issue is obviously every time he's talked, that's what we've had to talk about, and because it's a minutes restriction, it's like, okay, well, you can only play 22, so we have to talk about the fact that you can only play 22. In the first two games, it was like, okay, well, like he didn't play the fourth. And so you're like, okay, and they lost in the fourth. I mean, they faded towards the end. It's like, okay, well, how do you feel about this? The fact, like, why is this that you're not playing fourth quarters? What's kind of the medical rationale behind that? And so then they flipped the situation up so that he wasn't starting against Sacramento, and he came off the bench for the first time since his rookie year. And he didn't get, he wanted to finish the game, but they didn't finish the game because they were down 15 with 3 minutes to go. So they pulled him. And so he was we could just tell on Friday that he was really getting frustrated. And, and just, some of his answers, you're like, okay, like he is really tired of dealing with this. Like it is exhausting him. And he's like, he's like, I know a lot of people frustrated, but nobody's more frustrated than I am. Like, trust me. And he's really having a hard time with it. So I think that was kind of his way of sort of blowing off steam with it, of just kind of making a joke and trying to get by it, because it's just like, he's trying to do anything to feel normal again. More or less. And so I don't know, I didn't go last night. So, they'll be back tomorrow to play Houston. So I'll get a better sense of just sort of where his head's at, and we'll get a better sense of where his body is. And so he's still, he's still dealing with it. It's just a thing that's just not going away. And the way he put it was, it's not necessarily pain, but it's just just the way he talked about it on Friday night was basically like it's never gone. It's never just not there at all when you have a hamstring. You always notice, even if you're not necessarily in pain, you notice that it's not right. And so that's kind of where he's been with it, and it's been lingering, and that's the thing that can happen. And I think that even from the beginning, when Carlisle was talking about it, that you don't want to mess with it, he's like, it can be tricky, and it doesn't always recover the way that you want it to. So I guess it's been predictable at the end of the day that it's been as annoying as it has been for him.
Annoying. That's always a great word, because the at least the Pacers fans, that's something they haven't had to worry about this year is being annoyed with their team, because no matter what has been the situation, it seems like they've been able to navigate those waters. And how lucky are they to have picked up Pascal Siakam at this time? Because had they not made that move, this would have really hurt the Pacers.
Yeah, no, I mean, they still, won a couple. They were better situated, even if they hadn't made the move to win without him, than they had been, than they were last year. I mean, I don't know what their record would have been if they don't make that move in the middle of the deal. But they were obviously able to win some games that people thought they weren't supposed to win. I mean, they went out and beat, Sacramento. They went out and they beat Atlanta. They beat Washington. They really struggled when they lost them last year for 10 games, and they were playing better even prior to the Siakam move. But those 3 games, Philly, Phoenix, Memphis, that was a stretch where you saw really the importance of having another star, somebody that could step in and do the things that Pascal Siakam could do. And so he definitely has just, brought the level up a lot. And they were playing pretty well to start with. I mean, it is a group that's been really cohesive, that's done a lot of things well. They were doing a better job on the defensive end. And, frankly, one thing about taking Halliburton out of the lineup, he does some things well defensively, but he's not great at just manning up and stopping somebody. The guys that replace him are, as much as Andrew Nembhard and TJ McConnell don't have quite Halliburton's offensive capacity, they can score the basketball, and also they can really defend you. They really get after you. Obviously, McConnell in particular likes to take the ball off you in the backcourt. That's kind of his go-to move. So, they were pretty effective. But Siakam it's just important to have a guy that can get his and they can find a way to just really score. And Siakam last night, I thought I was just really impressed with just how many times as he just hits that pivot turnaround fadeaway, out of a post up, and just how good that shot is for him. And just how sort of on point he is with that. So, I mean, he's he does things that nobody else in that team can do, and yeah, he rose the level. And the fact, winning those 3 games, Phoenix, Philly, Portland, not Portland, Phoenix, Philly, Memphis, was a big stretch to make sure that they didn't really fade here, and they're still around. Don't get me wrong, Pacers fans still get frustrated with this team. Trust me. If you play enough games, you're going to see some performances you don't like. So if you don't think Pacers fans are frustrated with the Pacers, I would like to show you my mentions on a given evening or most of this past week. But they are still in a position where they are hanging at the end of the day where they want to be. This team, no one was presuming a title for this group. The goal was for them to be a playoff team, and they are still, safely in that position of, getting to a playoff series. I think that was just the most important thing that this team had to do, was get to a playoff series, not just, if you play in the play-in, win the play-in, or at least, get qualified for a 7-game, best of 7 playoff series. And I think they're still in really good shape for that. Even if you get in the top 8 and you have to win 1 out of 2 play-in games, you're still in much better position than you are when you're 9 of 10, and you could lose 1 and be out. So I think as long as they're in the top 8, they're in good shape. They're in much better shape if they stay at the 6. And certainly if you're them, you want to move up so that you're safely in that top 6, and you don't have to worry about the play-in round.
Looking ahead, 2 games from now, on I think Thursday, they will take on the Golden State Warriors, and I mentioned that because is Trey Jackson-Davis currently up with them?
I presume he is. Like I said, I don't imagine they sent him down very much. Let me look at their last box score. I would presume so, because they obviously the issue is he's not getting a lot of minutes because Draymond's back. And so that's really what kind of determines whether or not he plays. Certainly he was getting a whole lot of minutes when Draymond was suspended. They're fewer and further between now just because there's more guys playing. But let me see, did he play at all in this 141-134 overtime game against the Hawks? But he's got to be on the bench. You can't he might get some Santa Cruz work from time to time, but you can't really demote him all the way because they need him.
Is that
he played 9 minutes the other night.
So will that be his first time playing in Indianapolis?
Yeah. Well, because you only play 1 road game a year between the East and the East and Western series are 1 home game, 1 road game.
So Trace Jackson-Davis will be coming back to the
grand return.
State.
Yeah, the grand return of Trace on Thursday. I'm sure he's really excited to see us lining up in front of his locker. I'm sure he knows it's coming. I'm sure he missed us. And so he's got to be getting ready for that. So, but yeah, obviously we'll be getting ready to talk to him and get a sense of how he's doing and everything like that. So, yeah.
We've got to take a break. Dustin Dopirak from Indy Stars with us. We'll be back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market. Well, then you got
Look at you being timely today, Jimbo.
Hey man, do what I try to do. What day is the 22nd on? Oh, it's time to roll the calendar.
The 22nd is a Thursday.
Yeah, you got a little road trip coming up, don't you?
Yeah, still planning specifics on that one. And
the Garden coming up.
Yeah, I just got back from the Garden.
They go back to Charlotte?
They do go back to Charlotte. Yeah, it's.
Why do you not just play? See that makes no sense to me. Why did you still play back-to-back games?
Reasons. I don't know. I don't know who has what when.
But that kind of scheduling is just stupid to me. When you've got to travel. I guess it doesn't matter if you're going from New York to Charlotte or from Indianapolis to Charlotte, but
yeah,
their travels, they could, to me, the NBA could be such a less expensive league if they made their travel schedules more like baseball. Why don't they do that?
I mean, they do some of it.
I know that they've tried to do that here of late, but
well, so you got to. I mean, there's a few things to that. I think if they did all, first off, there are things about it that coaches don't like, and I get it. Like one thing about it is that it's like it artificially gives the team that lost the first game an advantage. So, because it's like, okay, like, how you got beat the first time. So you flip things up and you have a chance the second game. And when it's immediate, nothing's a whole lot different. And so it's like you're the lesser team gets used to you. And so it's like it gives the lesser team more of a chance. And so it's like it's sort of artificially giving the lesser team more of a chance. I know the Pacers probably don't beat Philly the second night, again, like if they hadn't just played them, so it's like basically like, all right, like Tyrese Maxey went off of them, they made an adjustment, and then they won the game. And so it's like that really helped them get where they got in the in-season tournament because, the Pacers won that game, and that was the one that counted the in-season tournament. The other one didn't. So, yeah, I mean, I think that, there are things they like about it. There are things they don't. And that's one deal. Like, I think it's better, but I mean, I can see how you can't do it all the way across the board.
Here we go, guys. 10 seconds. Do 583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details. This segment is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday. Thank you so much for being with us. Coming to you with Dustin Dopirak of the Indy Star. Dustin, I know you've been busy with the Pacers, but Indiana men's team is just, man, they've fallen and they can't get up, I guess is the best thing I could think of analogy for them, because they have fallen. They've fallen all the way to the number 99 ranked Ken Palm team in the country. And it's more than shocking when you have the talent that they have on this team to do that. Now, there are areas where they're definitely lacking talent, but that's a whole different discussion. They still have, to me, talent to be better than what they are, and that's a problem.
Yeah, no, things are in bad shape. I mean, like, I'm not going to lie and say that I've been following it as close in terms of like watching it, on a constant basis, certainly as much as I used to when I was on the beat. But yeah, no, I mean, they have consistently lost games that you would look on the list and say that they shouldn't lose. And they've obviously been not just beaten, but soundly beaten the games that you would look at and say that they should lose. They've not necessarily been super competitive, in, UConn, Auburn. I mean, obviously they made Kansas a real game, but like getting housed at Nebraska, all this. Yeah, I mean, bottom line, they haven't been as good as they need to be, and or anywhere near close to it, and they haven't been very good at all. So they are careening towards being lucky if they even make the NIT. I mean, right now at this point, they wouldn't. I don't think they would be in the NIT. Or they'd be just certainly at best on the edge of it. So it's not good. No, that's
what's funny, not in a funny way, but a lot of fans keep saying, "Oh man, they're bound for the NIT." They're not even good enough to get into the NIT right now.
Yeah, you're not promised an NIT bid with this group the way that it's going. I mean, you better win a lot of games in February and March to be an NIT team. And the NCAA tournament is swiftly becoming an absolute, it's not even an afterthought. I mean, like what's left on the list. I mean, you absolutely have to beat Purdue. Like, you can't, to get in the tournament, you probably got to beat Purdue and Wisconsin and even that, and Michigan State, and that probably doesn't even do it for you. Like, even running the table, probably, you're not, if you were to get in, you wouldn't be safe. I mean, like, I don't even know. I'd have to look at their net page, but I mean, like, they don't have a quad one win yet, right? Like,
no.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, like,
what's sad is they're not even a quad 2 win in Bloomington.
Yeah. Oh, that's bad.
I mean, being
That's
ranked
bad.
at
So
99,
they're not 75. Yeah. God
I
almighty.
was like, that's not even a quad 2 win for a team to come in and win on the road. That
Oof.
is, I mean, Wolf is exactly right. It's just, it's harrowing, and it really, there's no way fans cannot be not only pissed off, but really, really nervous as to where this program is going. Because it's year 3, and I don't want to hear the excuses about injuries. Every team has had injuries. Every team has injuries. But you know what? That's not why they are where they are. That has not been, even when they weren't injured, they were still having the same problems. So that's not it. And
it's not a very well constructed team. I mean, I think obviously it is important to note, I think, when we're talking about, well, it's year 3, like they were good in year 2. I mean, like you can't view it as, oh my God, it's taken them so long for this to be this good. Like, well, they got good. And like, I mean, college basketball, like you do have to be reminded, is cyclical. You know, it like college sports are cyclical because you have guys graduate, you know, like obviously the guys that they replaced, you know, Kel Elware is probably a better NBA prospect than Trace Jackson Davis is, but he's not a better college player. You know, Jalen Hood-Schifino is a better player than any guard they currently have, and it's not close.
And now, being fair, he would be on this team right now had Xavier Johnson not gotten hurt last year. I mean, that's the truth.
In theory, probably had he not gotten hurt last year, but you know, like, you know, that does. I mean, he thinks that. I, for the most part, think that. I don't know if you could state it as fact, obviously, because you just don't know how much better he would have got. And I think, you know, he just really proved himself as very pro-ready. And, you know, it wasn't a question by the time it got to decision-making time as to whether or not he should go. I mean, he even said, you know, we asked him in Chicago about it. You know, he's like, we got to the end, and my coaches were like, well, you better go. You know, like, you're ready. It's time.
Yeah.
Obviously, he hasn't had the rookie season he was hoping to because he's been dealing with injuries. But basically, everything that I heard coming out of LA was that they are ecstatic if what you know with what he wants. So it's with what he was doing, and so it's just you don't know for sure that he wouldn't have made that leap in the second half of the season with X. It certainly would have slowed things down, you presume, but all the same, I mean. You might have had him for longer. You might not have. It's a net positive for him to be in the NBA. It's a net positive as far as Indiana is concerned because that helps you recruit, and presumably it helped them pick up with some of the guys that they got in the portal, you know, or even getting, you know, Mbako. So at the end of the day, like, it probably will be a long-term better thing for him to be a one and done, and especially, you know, they could really help. It would really help them if he gets healthy and is effective soon.
Unfortunately, it wasn't helpful enough to pick up a guard because that's where they could have used the help the most. And the biggest and an issue with Indiana is, first of all, nothing they can and probably very well could lose the rest of their games. I'm not saying that to be Debbie Downer. I will guarantee you they will not be favored in a game on their schedule. And that includes any game remaining at Assembly Hall. They were shockingly favored over Penn State and just got drummed. But the point I'm making is nothing is going to happen this year. If anybody's talking about a change at the top, that ain't happening this year. But not only that, as you look forward, there is a deep relationship between the president of the board of trustees for Indiana, Quinn Buckner, former basketball player, and Mike Woodson. How deep does that relationship go to keep things from changing sooner than they might, even after this season?
Well, I mean, first off, it's not just the president. I mean, like,
I know, but I'm just talking about that particular relationship
for a second. I mean, like, it's not just that. Oh, it's Mike Woodson, or like Quinn Buckner is just like this nefarious character that we don't know very much about. I mean, I see Quinn every day, first off, you know, or at least three or four times a week. So like, this is what everybody supposedly wanted. Like, let's back up that train to be like,
well, they
oh my
actually
God,
wanted everybody wanted the dude up in who's a mass hole, as he put it.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, people went after Brad Stevens first, but then it was, like, let's go get somebody who's from the family. Let's go get somebody who is of the Knight realm, and let's not act like that's a purely, a concoction of the ex-players and that they have this, the fraternity that nobody wants to touch. Like this, when Woodson comes in and it's like, oh, wait, it's our guy. Remember Mike, how great Mike was? And like, Quinn Buckner and Scott Mayer are on board. How great is this? And so it's not just, oh, Quinn Buckner is going to stand in the way of this moving train. It's the whole Indiana family, like they're not going to want to fire one of their own. And so it's like, all right, well, like I understand. And like, Dulcin is a manager, but like in every way, like a big part of the sell for this was like, this finally rebonds the family, this gets everybody back in a way that they haven't been before. And that's going to lead to things getting better. And so, and again, let's not forget, as much as like we're talking about how bad this could be, like he did take them to the tournament the first 2 years. He did rally them back the first season where they really weren't going in a good direction. And it was Xavier Johnson that helped them get there. And so it's like, it's really easy to despair about how bad things are right now and be like, okay, well, it can't possibly get better. Like, how fast does the trigger have to be pulled? And is Quinn Buckner going to be the guy who stands in the way of that? And what are you going to do about that? Like, I mean, he's too high up. I mean, he's too high up because he was on an undefeated national championship team. Like, he's all that high up because of who he is, like because of what he accomplished and how big of a deal Indiana was and how good of a deal good Indiana was when he was there. And the fact that he's maintained, this position. He went out and won an NBA title. He's now a color analyst with the pro team up north. I mean, and he gets involved in all kinds of events and stuff like that. He was one of the chairs for the committee that brought the entire tournament to Indianapolis in 2021 when was the COVID scenario. So like, it's not like we're talking about, I mean, it just makes it feel like it's like, oh, this, like dark things are going to be happening in the background where like, these guys we don't know are going to pull strings. Like, no, this is Quinn Buckner. This is the guy that was on the championship team. This was the guy that you wanted to have out front. And you're like, these are the guys you should listen to because they've won championships and they, played for Knight and they were part of the best teams that ever played at Indiana. So why shouldn't you listen to them when they say, hey, let's go get the guy who's been, effective in the NBA? And so it's just like, yeah, I mean, I imagine like, it is going to be hard to fire Mike Woodson because he's an ex-player. It does absolutely add something relevant there, but that's what everybody wanted, when everybody was talking about this, like that, like it not necessarily everybody. I'm sure people were like, hey, I told you Mike Woodson was going to be great, but like that's what everybody was talking about for a while, is that Indiana needs to be brought together and a hire needs to be made that brings the old guys back, that gets everybody involved, that makes everybody who was upset about the Knight firing feel like they're more a part of it again, that they're never really going to feel a part of it if it's not a Knight guy. And I called a whole bunch of people when he was hired, from old teams, like, man, this is the best thing that ever happened. I'm so excited about this. I mean, I have not really been 10 toes in with this program since Bobby got fired, and now I'm ecstatic. And so it's like, I don't know. It's going to be really weird if people start turning on Quinn or somebody like that to be like, you have to get out of the way because we can't deal with it. I
think it would be Dulcin first that they go after because it's.
I mean, he'll probably, he might burn for this one. And so, but it's just, I just heard all these things about how important it was for the family to be reunited.
But I think a big part of that, though, Dustin, is because they also expected the fight that Knight's teams brought. Well, they expected the winning. Now that may be right or wrong to expect that because that's a high mark. But they expected the energy, the fight, the defense, the try. That's what they were thinking that they were getting with that, and it has been actually the opposite the case. It turns out, without the forethought, Woody's 40 years away from college and away from the college game, away from Indiana, has shown it is nothing that he does is about college or the college game. And I'm not judging him. I'm just pointing out the fact.
Right. I mean, yes and no, but like the side piece of it is that, part of the complaint is that his teams don't shoot enough threes. And trust me, that's not a that's not a criticism you hear in the NBA. That's not something
nor hit enough threes.
Right. And it's a big part of the issue. I mean, it goes back. I mean, I think I go back to what my criticism has been from the beginning is just like, I think he's good enough to find NBA quality talent and convince them that they should come to Indiana. He'll teach them to, play in the NBA. The issue is building a roster around them that maximizes their talents, take advantage of what they are, and builds a whole roster and a whole playing style, and not just be built around, the central, pro level talents. I think that's the piece that he needs to figure out. But I mean, I do think for as bad as this is, I do think it's premature to talk about firing. I do. I mean, I think because it's like I think you can. It's easy to forget that he did have success the first 2 years, and I mean they cycled out and like, yeah, this is his first team that's mostly built by him, and so he should. I'm not saying he shouldn't be negatively judged by this, but like. He is learning some really, really hard lessons this year, and he could apply them. I mean, you can't say for now that, okay, he has a team right now that's broken from a roster perspective. He can't play the style that he promised he was going to play. But does that mean that he'll never be able to recover and that you have to start looking at contingency plans for moving out? I mean, I guess you always have to be prepared for that. But I mean, I don't know that necessarily means that you have to start thinking of, who needs to get out of the way to make this happen. I don't think that because this team's bad and it's going to be bad and it's going to miss the tournament. I don't think you have to fire him after this year. Number one. Number two, like you judge him on the lessons learned. Like you're going to have failures, and you can't. If you fire a coach every time after his first failure every single time, then all you're going to do is fire coaches.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. But there's also a time where the proof is in the pudding, and this seems like yes, he got him back, but you're comparing that to Archie Miller, which is, I think, a step down from you coaching. I think you would have done a better job.
It really isn't. Trust me. I mean, it's funny, but like, I have to stand. I have to step up for the Yinzer there. I know the Miller family. Trust me, I could not coach as well as anybody with a Miller last name. And I understand that's like, okay, I can't.
Okay, well, you would be awfully as bad as he is. Okay, I'll give you that.
I'd be so much worse. I mean, I get it. It's a hard job. Like, you got to remember, it's a hard job. And and I think he did a whole lot of things poorly, and I don't think he was ever really invested the way that he should have been. I think he saw this thing going sideways and never really recovered. But Mike still took a team of his guys and took them to the tournament, and pieced that group together, and his guys, and went out and got guys in the portal that worked at the time. He had, the same guy who's killing him right now was the guy who got him in the tournament before. And Xavier Johnson. I mean, X's last 2 months of 2022 were really important in getting them into the tournament. Really was, and so I don't think there's any doubt about that. And so it's like you have ups and downs in this business, and he is failing right now. He's not doing very well right now, but that doesn't mean that he can't get up. That doesn't mean he can't recover. And obviously, I think you judge him based on how he recovers. He's going to learn something. He has to be learning some things right now. There are clear lessons in terms of what do you need to make your style of play work, your vision work. What don't you have right now? And so it's like if he doesn't take those lessons and apply them and win, he's going to get fired. Without a doubt. It might not be next year, it might be the year after that. But you do have to say, okay, like it's not like year 3 and you haven't made the tournament, or you ever going to make it, and that you would look at this team and say, no, you're not. You've had success before. He's had success, and it's like, okay, like this time he's not, and that should count against his record for sure. And like long term, it's he might not pull up from this, but he also might. And so I don't think there's a 0% chance that he can pull the plane up and land it.
Yeah, the saddest thing to say though is he what he did accomplish, he did mostly with Archie's players, other than Jalen
It's not a
Hutchinson.
sad thing, though. I mean, I don't think it's fair to call that sad. I mean, I think we do this thing where we're like, well, he won with his players, and that means that like it's somehow the previous guy's accomplishment. Well, that guy didn't do it.
Oh no, I wouldn't say it's his accomplishment. I'm saying they were both. That shows you the ineptness of Archie.
It's as if it's fake in some way, and it's like
right.
It requires something to take a group that somebody else recruited and take them someplace, because their first thought is, oh shoot, you didn't recruit me, should I even still be here? And so you not only got to get them to stay, you got to unlock something that in them that hasn't been yet. That's talent. Like that requires something on the part of a coach. And we so frequently act like, oh well, that guy got him the talent, and so it's like he didn't even accomplish anything. Like he did. Mike, you have to say Mike Woodson accomplished something with that group of guys, and so he hasn't gone through 3 years and accomplished nothing. And so I don't want to be like totally on the side of Mike. Like I think he's
right. Hey, that's why hearing the other side of things is what people need to hear.
Sure, I devil's advocate a whole lot. I mean, that's one of my go-to moves. But I mean, that's just my thing. Is like when you are calculating all this, like you can't look at year 1 and year 2 and say, well, he did that with Archie Miller's guys. I mean, it's like, well, Archie Miller didn't win, and so it's like you're not taking a ready-made, but like, yes, the cupboard was not bare. They had guys who could be turned into something, and Mike Woodson has to be given credit for turning that into something. It was possible, and so it's not like it was a miracle that he got into the tournament, but he still did. He accomplished something with that group, so you have to say, all right, well, there is some value in him as a coach, and so you don't necessarily have to run away from that yet. If he doesn't recover, in a year or two, then you make a change. But I mean, I think everybody is getting a little bit ahead of themselves at this point.
Dustin Dopirak, make sure you give him a follow at the Indy Star. The Pacers are continuing their run at the playoffs, and we'll look forward to talking to you next week, my friend. Hopefully I'll see you between then.
Sounds good, my man. Talk to you soon.
Dustin Dopirak here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Up next, Travis Miller from Boiler Upload. We'll talk more about the Big Ten and that race. Has that race been won with Purdue's win over Wisconsin this weekend? Man, that's sure a big step forward in that for sure. Back with more here right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Formerly. Hello,
morning, Travis.
Morning, guys. How are you guys doing?
Oh, well. It's just peachy.
I'm feeling pretty good after yesterday. Honestly, I was impressed with that win. That was a good win for Purdue and Madison.
To me, that's a sealer there. That's
Casey had a tweet yesterday. He's like, it feels like Purdue won that with about their C game. And because Edey struggled, he didn't. I know he put up an 18 and 13, but he didn't have the best day.
They defended the hell out of him, though. I mean, that's what you have to do. So, But the biggest difference, it was not Braden Smith to me. It's Lance Jones.
Oh yeah,
and it's the one piece that Painter added.
Yeah,
I saw your boy last week, by the way.
What was that? I'm sorry.
I saw your boy last week, by the way.
Oh, okay, Casey. Yeah.
No. Painter.
Oh, Painter. Yeah.
I was down at Heritage Hills, and I kind of knew that. I knew that after. Well, I mean, I'd already had this trip planned, but I knew that Woodson was going to be there, but. After the game, I'm waiting around to talk to Trent Sisley, and down comes from the stands comes Painter, and then from the other side, I guess here comes I don't know where he had been sitting. Here's Michael Shrewsbury. I'm like, son of a bitch. They're all three there, and I would love to have talked to him there, but I didn't. You can't talk about recruits anyway, and
Yeah.
I could have been very generic and just said, hey, what's it like to have, you get out and, but I will say this, those SOBs, easy travel, baby. Huntington, which is, I don't know, 20 minutes maybe from Heritage Hills High School, they all fly into Huntington.
Wow.
Including Mike Woodston.
You got to fly from Bloomington to Huntingburg? What?
Dude, it's a 2-hour drive. If you think about it, that's 4 hours of travel that you would have to do via car, and that's
all right, here we go, guys.
HRVs, CRVs, Honda Ridgelines, payment free for 90 days, or get 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by the Ugly Grouper. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back on this Monday. It is February 5. Appreciate you being with us as always. And joined now by Travis Miller from Boiler Upload. Big games all weekend, first of all, in college basketball. I mean, just some great big-time matchups. I cannot believe, well, I should never say I cannot believe, but Kansas just throttled Houston. I'm like, okay, hello. That opened some eyes. I mean, I know that they were at home, so that makes a huge difference, but that game was not close early on. They got out and got away, and man, it never got any better for Houston.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if they could do the NCAA tournament like they do so many other sports, and even the women's NCAA tournament where you get to play at home, at least for a couple of rounds and stuff. You've got baseball.
No. I say no to that. No, not the NCAA tournament. That's part of what makes the NCAA tournament great, because there's no way a low seed will ever win, hardly ever. I mean, there's no 16 seed going to come into Mackey and knock off Purdue. I could go down the line on that. So that's why I say I put the kibosh on that, hopefully.
Well, maybe if you got to play like the regional finals at home, you keep the first and second round as they are, but if you're a 1 seed, you get the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 at home. I'm fine with that.
Well, hell, Purdue will get to play in Indianapolis most likely, or Louisville. It's usually one of those two places. So the NCAA has done a job of keeping a lot of teams closer if you earn that right. But Purdue is definitely on the way to earning that. And more importantly, I personally think that they may have, even though there are a lot of games left, to me, that win this weekend at Wisconsin for Purdue, man, that's a league sealer for me. I'm like, wow, they just beat what is probably the second best team in the league. I don't know if it's them or Illinois. It depends on what day for Illinois, but right now, Purdue is just I don't know if they can be caught. Of course, if they lost every game out, but that ain't happening.
It definitely was a big step towards winning the Big Ten again, just because you look at the schedule in the last 8, Purdue's next 5 games, they're going to be a big favorite. 4 of them are against teams in the bottom 4 of the standings.
Well,
they
3 out of the next 4 they're at home. Yeah,
they got Indiana, Minnesota, Michigan, Ohio State, and Rutgers in the next 5. And 3, as you said, 3 of those are at home, and they're going to be in real good shape. If they go, they should, if they take care of business, be 15-2 before finishing kick of Michigan State, at Illinois, and Wisconsin. So, they're in great shape. And the craziest thing is they could have been done in the race easily by now. Last Wednesday against Northwestern, they are down 5 points with 2.5 minutes to go. They lose that game. If Wisconsin doesn't blow a lead at Nebraska, suddenly Wisconsin and Purdue are playing yesterday for a game that would have put Purdue 3 games back in the standings. So, it's amazing how quickly things can change. And I know we were talking in the pre-show here, the difference is Lance Jones. He has gone out and he has made the plays to get Purdue wins in the last 3 games. And I so much is on him. If Purdue finally does get it done this year, Lance Jones is going to be the reason, and he is going to go down and just be loved by every Purdue fan out there.
Oh, absolutely. And the just getting it done is for Purdue is getting to a Final Four, something that they have only accomplished twice in their history. And the last time was 1980. And that is, you want to talk about carrying a yoke around your neck, especially with the success they've had over the last decade. Not making a Final Four is just hanging over this program. As good as Gene Cady was, he never made it to a Final Four. As good as Matt Painter has been, and the consistency they've had in West Lafayette, they've just never been able to get to a Final Four. 2016, I think, they were so close. But this is a year that I say there's no way that they don't make it. But I don't believe that, because I just watched Kansas beat the ever-loving crap out of a team that I thought was pretty sure going to make the Final Four. Well, that's out the window. That's why they have to play the games, man. And if it's a game that Lance Jones does not play well and things don't go well, we've seen it. Purdue can be beat. They're not undefeated. Nobody is undefeated for that reason. Everybody can be beat. You have to have your A game. If not, people are going to bring it.
Oh, yeah. And I have seen Purdue in my lifetime lose every type of tournament game they can lose. I mean, I don't think anything is outside the realm of possibility when it comes to Purdue losing in the tournament. And you talk about, not making a Final Four. They've only made 3 Elite Eights in that time. They made it with Glenn Robinson in 1994 as a number 1 seed, lost to Duke. They had the broken bracket in 2000, made it to the Elite Eight, and lost to Wisconsin, which was the 3rd time they lost to Wisconsin in 4 tries that year, because they lost to them in the Big Ten tournament and in Madison. And then you have 2019, where you get as close as you can possibly get to going. I mean, they lose the game on a last-second shot that sends it to overtime. And you're literally a split second away from going to the Final Four. So this team has come that close, and then they've lost to a 16 seed. Only 2 teams in history can say that on the men's side. So, you still got to play the games, and that's why nothing is certain yet. Purdue fans are always going to be on guard. I'm especially going to be on guard. But you're right. This team looks like, if it doesn't happen, when is it going to happen, honestly? Because they've got everything in place. They're deep, they're talented, they're experienced. I mean, you got guys like Miles Colvin shooting 43% from 3 from the floor, and he's made a difference in some early season games. He hasn't even played the last 3 games. He's the 10th man in the rotation right now. And when you've got a guy in reserve like that you might be able to bring off the bench and hit 3 threes in a game out of nowhere. I mean, how many teams have that right now? And then, Zach Edey is just part of it. I mean, everybody else is really, really good. And Purdue is surviving and even thriving in some stretches where Edey is getting rest on the bench. And then you bring Edey in, and, he is an automatic 20 and 10 every night.
Purdue is what looks like a game and a half out in front of Illinois right now, and at 21-2 overall. They're 11-0 at Mackey, 10-2 in the conference play. They've won 7 straight. Illinois in tied with second, and with Wisconsin in second at 8-3. But the Illini are 17-5 overall, 12-2 at home, and they've won 3 straight. So that's the only game. That's the biggest game left on Purdue's schedule, and they travel to play it at Illinois for that game.
Yes, and that's the second to last game of the season, and by then the race could all be totally decided. I mean,
right?
Illinois and Wisconsin still have to play each other in Madison, so there's one. They have one more loss between the 2 of them there, and if Purdue takes care of business before that, you're going to look at them being 16-2, going to Champaign. So, Illinois has to be virtually perfect from here on out to even have a chance in that game, most likely. So, again, anything can happen. I mean, that game at Ohio State could be a little bit tricky, even though Ohio State looks like they're done. Never count out Tom Izzo with Michigan State when they come to West Lafayette on March the 2nd. But Purdue is very much in a good spot right now. You can't be in a better spot, honestly.
Who would be more pissed off, IU fans right now or Purdue fans, if they get beat in the tournament prior to making a Final Four?
I think it depends on who and where it happens. If Purdue loses to another double-digit seed for the 4th year in a row, that's really going to get under some people's skins, especially the way that this team is built. If they lose an Elite Eight game against a really good number 2 seed, say Houston slips to a 2 and beats them by a point or so, I don't think fans are going to be upset about that, especially if Purdue wins the Big Ten. But Purdue has got to at least make a Sweet 16 with this, and they cannot lose to a double-digit seed again.
But even a Sweet 16, this is the last year with Zach Edey. This is it. And there's no way that you have the College Player of the Year 2 years running, which rarely happens, and don't get to that level. You know that, man, that mountain's even higher after that. So if it does not happen this year with everything they have around him, because we talked about Lance Jones, that being the kind of a missing link that they needed, and Matt Painter was smart enough to bring in, and it has shown to be the successful ingredient. If it does not work, I would imagine that Purdue fans, they may not be as pissed as the Indiana fans are right now, but there would be a level of, I don't know what I would call it, exasperation that is pretty damn high.
Yeah, and just because you've had so many great seasons in a row here where Purdue has been right there. I mean, you look at the last decade, the only year Purdue missed the tournament was the COVID year, and they were probably going to miss the tournament that year, but they were still at least on the edge of the bubble when the Big Ten tournament was canceled. And I would say my only caveat is, look at what has happened in the last 10 or 15 years of the NCAA tournament. How many teams have made unexpected runs to the Final Four out of nowhere, really? I mean, Butler's been to the title game twice, Loyola, George Mason, Wichita State, VCU. I think Michigan State made it as a 10 seed one year. Syracuse made it as a 10 seed. As long as you're making the tournament, you've got a chance. And, my former writer, Juan Crespo, he always said that he expected Purdue to make a Final Four in a year no one expected it to happen, where they make a run like as a 5 seed or something. But I do agree with you. On paper, this is the year. This is the year that it needs to happen, because if it doesn't, who knows what's going to happen then.
Absolutely. Travis Miller from Boiler Upload joining us talking Big Ten basketball. Make sure you give him a follow as well. Brother, I appreciate you. We'll do it again next week.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
You betcha. We've got more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. What is the rest of the season for Indiana going to entail? Then what? Then what? The big question mark. More coming right after this. Brought to you by the Ugly Grouper.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market. Oh, yeah.
All right, I've got sound from Woody and Trey Galloway, if you want to use it.
Appreciate you. Great. All right. So what is the out time here?
We'll have about 18-ish, 19-ish minutes.
Oh, shoot.
10:40 is the out time.
I could have gone longer with him.
I mean, you could have taken a second if you wanted to, but I didn't. I thought you might be done with them. Apparently, you were just talking about the nice weather. Apparently, they're expecting another cold spell here in a few weeks.
Don't say it.
No, apparently it's very similar to what happened mid-January. So we'll see what happens. So keep an eye out. It happens usually twice a year. It really does. It's pretty consistent. Twice a winter, I should say.
Oh, poo.
So if you're getting the golf clubs out now, I guess maybe enjoy it for a couple weeks while you got the decent weather.
What the heck?
All right, here we go.
Or pick out a tomahawk steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville and Evansville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday. I hope you are doing well. Thanks for being with us. We greatly appreciate you. And I forgot to say, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We appreciate you. Purdue leading the Big Ten right now, 10-2 record. Illinois, Wisconsin tied at 8-3. Illinois has the probably the only shot to catch Purdue, and it would be surprising, although they do get Purdue at home before the season comes to an end.
Not to mention, Wisconsin and Purdue do play again. They'll play in the final game of the regular season. So Wisconsin not down and out if they're able to pick themselves back up and Purdue falls a couple more times.
Yep. And, Indiana's game with Penn State, Don said it. The fact that Khalil Ware had such an incredible first half. I mean, he was perfect. He didn't miss a shot, didn't miss a field goal, didn't miss a 3-point. He hit his only 3-point attempt, was perfect at the free throw line. And then I'm not going to say they stopped feeding him the ball, but he didn't get it with the same consistency. Neither did Malik Renew. There was a change. And why? I have no idea. But it just shows this either the coach has to see that what was working is not being done and either call a timeout or use a timeout to say, we got to get back to what's working. That didn't happen.
And what's surprising is I feel like Woodson, at least over his first two seasons, kind of was known for being good at making adjustments, especially second half adjustments.
I don't know that I agree with that. I don't think there was ever an adjustment made ever. It was bring the ball down the court and feed it to Trace Jackson Davis.
I'm not talking about the Penn State game. I'm talking about, I'm talking about in games where they were down. I know the game plan was always make sure Trace Jackson Davis gets the ball. Like that's going to be the case when you have a player of that caliber. But whenever they were having issues on defense, you would see them locked down. You don't see that with this team.
Yeah, well, they don't have quite the talent on the perimeter right now. That's a big part of that.
Of course. Yeah, that was the big whiff of the offseason.
And all the talk about coaching again, there is not going to be any change. But this, and David, I'm not singling you out, but because there are a lot of people that talk about this, it says it's pretty strange that they never considered hiring Steve Alford. And in my opinion, No, it's not. It's not strange at all. You're just looking at his name. Well, look at his coaching record. Specifically, I almost said Pacifically. You got to be kidding me. Specifically, his NCAA tournament coaching record. I'll save you the trouble. His ceiling in, I don't know, has he been a coach for 30 years now? Roughly that at it. Great guy and a good coach. Has success at places like New Mexico and Nevada, but
and had a few good years at UCLA before he ultimately got fired.
Yeah,
I mean, he went to 4 Sweet 16s. I know he never got the big one done, but he went.
And you know what? That's the Sweet 16 is his ceiling.
Yes,
any place he's ever been. And if you look at the 30 years, whatever he's been coaching, his teams average making it to the Sweet 16 every 7 years. That's what you would have to look forward to. Every 7 years, your team would make it to a Sweet 16. So to me, that's why. And I don't think that that's not a hire I would make. And like I think you said, first of all, nothing is going to happen. And I'm not saying they should do it now because I know that they're not, and that's the biggest thing. And to say anything other than that would just create problems that I am not looking for at the moment. But yes, if you were to ask me if they were making a change today, there are only 3 names. Nah, that's not true. There are many names that you'd have on that list.
Give me. You said you have 3 in mind. Surely that's kind of your top 3. Who are they?
Without question, Chris Beard, Pearl, Bruce Pearl, and Dusty May. Everyone's going to want to consider Dusty May for making the Final Four with that, and still having success with his team. But you also have Michael Lewis, who's at Ball State. You have Keith Smart, who has been an assistant at Arkansas, although they have fallen off a little bit under Eric Musselman. And Calbert Chaney, of course, who is on the staff right now after previously being on staff with the Pacers, although without having head coaching experience.
That would not be the proper move.
It's not one I would see happening.
Yeah.
But
that would be
nothing is going to happen. I cannot be any clearer than that. Nothing is going to happen now, without question. There will be at least another season. Now, if next season were to go like this season did, I would find it hard to believe that there would not be a change at that time, because it would just be,
especially if you have a similar scenario this upcoming offseason where you leave scholarships open. You don't, and I don't want to say load up, but you leave positions.
No, you don't get the talent that you need. You're on it.
Like you've got to be able, and obviously guard's going to be the big question. Are you going
to? Matt Painter added one guy to his lineup.
There's no telling. You may have to make up more than just a guard position. If Kalel Ware declares for the NBA, if someone like Mackenzie Mbako goes to the transfer portal, and even if players don't declare for the NBA, if they haven't already used the one-time transfer rule, they could absolutely do that again. And with the state of the NCAA, it wouldn't surprise me if players who have already used the one-time transfer rule try to do it again without having to sit out. I mean, we've seen players get away with that before, so. It will be a very crucial offseason for Mike Woodson when we get to that point. Obviously, you'd like to see his team finish out well to, at least create some sort of positive momentum, even though it likely, and I almost want to say certainly won't end in the NCAA tournament. That's kind of where we're at this point.
Indiana is definitely going to have to replace Kalel Ware. No question. There's no question in my mind. He's not going to be in Bloomington next year,
because even though I'm going to back myself up here. This is a very weak NBA draft class compared to other seasons. And so Kalel Ware would almost be foolish to skip out on it for an additional year of college when it will likely be tougher next year. Yes, he could better himself from another year.
Anybody that is projected in the first round, I don't care what the situation is, you're gone. You go.
And he already, even though he is not the dominant player that Trace Jackson Davis was, he has a greater skill set for the NBA. He is
and Trace Jackson Davis was the second to last player picked in the NBA draft.
Yes. And Trace was a great college player, and he's doing well in the NBA so far. But Kel'el Ware has that outside shot, which Trace has never been able to develop. So that automatically gives him something more that TJD was unable to have. And I'm not knocking him, but it would just be silly to assume that Kel'el Ware would come back simply because he's not as dominant in college as Trace Jackson Davis.
Absolutely. And so Indiana's going to have to replace Kel'el Ware. Xavier Johnson
that's gone. He's been here not been in Indiana for 6 seasons, but he's been in college for 6 seasons. So that's one of your starting guards gone.
So there's 2 big time players, starters basically gone. Your point guard and your middle guy. 2 of your most important pieces gone. Mbako, is he going to stay? That's a question mark. I'm not saying that he's leaving. I'm not suggesting that he's leaving. I'm just saying there's going to be a question mark there because the portal is available. And you never know what kids are going to decide.
Nah, he's not. Used to be, but he could.
He's not gone to that's not an option for him this season.
No, let me go and say this. Do not be surprised if somebody like him declares to test the NBA waters at the very least, though, because he does have aspirations to be in the league, obviously. That was his one of the first things he said whenever he talked to people in Indiana, is that he intends to be a 1-year guy. That likely won't be the case, but he will more than likely test the waters because that is his ultimate goal.
Yeah, but sometimes you already have an idea. Now, to test the waters by just going through the stuff, because
you could do all of that. You'd almost be silly not to.
But you have to be invited to that, and I'm not sure that's going to happen.
And that's true.
So
that's true.
We'll see. But there are Mike Woodson is going to have to do a number of things he hasn't done so far. He's going to have to bring in, and I know he's brought talent in. I'm not going to sit here and say that he hasn't, because I'm not trying to be negative, but he's going to have to bring in a multitude of talent in specific positions. He's going to have to he needs to bring in more than one guard. He needs to bring in multiple good guards. They are going to be so guard poor because you're already losing Xavier Johnson. You've got Gabe Cupps, who is still not quite, he's just not there.
He's still 2 years away from where he probably wants to be.
And that's maybe. There's no guarantee that he gets there. Yeah. His defense is good, but you have to have production from your point guard. You cannot have 2 points a game. Trey Galloway is just not athletic enough.
Exactly. Not even about it being unathletic enough. I wouldn't be surprised if Trey Galloway just wants a change of scenery with his extra year of eligibility. And yes, he's an Indiana guy, and maybe he won't transfer.
No.
Yeah, I'm just throwing it out there. You never know what players are thinking, even though they may be as loyal as loyalty can be. Like Trace Jackson Davis was that for Indiana. You never know when someone. I don't think his options
will have anything to do with loyalties. It will be. He's got a guaranteed. He's got a guaranteed spot. He's got a guaranteed position at Indiana. He does not have that anywhere else. So
I'm not saying he would go somewhere where it would be,
you're not going. He's not leaving. I just don't see that happening. That's just.
I didn't say he was. I was saying. I know. You never know. Anybody is up for grabs if they haven't already gone through the transfer portal process.
But Indiana is going to have to add the pieces they need. Period. End of story. You have to. You can't not get the guys like Dalton Connect. You have to get them, because if you don't, this is what you're going to see. This is the product, and this is the product because they do not have the talent they need in every position. But there's more to it than just that. I mean, I'm not going to act like Woody has done a coach of the year type of deal. Because to be honest with you, I don't think he has. Now, I am not in a position to judge, and I'm not judging him on the job he's done, but I can certainly talk about it and bring up some certain facts that say, this team has failed in this area, failed in that area, and recruiting has been part of it. Not landing the talent that you need is part of it. Not putting together the roster you need to be competitive that's his responsibility. And it didn't happen. And, he certainly likes to say that I'm not going to throw the players under the bus and then throw his players under the bus. He did it just the other day when he said, well, I'm not going to throw my players under the bus, but they didn't show up today. They didn't play. Well, he turns right around and throws them under the bus. Well,
who else does that frequently? And I know you're not as familiar, but Kenny Payne at Louisville does that all the time.
Yeah, well, that's not going to work out good for either of them.
It's not a good look.
When you're not winning, you have to look. What coach does not just say, hey, man, this is on me. This is on me. I'm not doing a good enough job. Virtually, I guarantee you, if this was, say, Rick Pitino, and they were going through this situation, he would be saying, this is on me. I didn't get good enough talent. We're not good enough here and here. He would just say it. We're not good enough here and here.
Saying
and that's
I didn't get
fault.
good enough talent is almost a way, and I know this is a hypothetical anyway, saying I didn't get good enough talent is still kind of throwing it on your players. You're saying your players aren't good enough.
Well, but there are truth to that.
It's taking ownership, but it is also throwing your players under the bus when you say that.
Well,
it's better to say I didn't have my players.
Honest.
Yeah, I mean, sure, that's fine.
But I mean, I get what you're saying, but you're telling the truth. It's not like you're saying something that's not true. Anyway, we're not seeing that. And I don't know. There has to be that understanding there. Number one, there has to be the actual taking responsibility of it. You can't just say it. You have to say it and mean it. And then you have to do something about it. So this is going to be the most important. This offseason is going to be the most important part of Mike Woodson's tenure, because he, without question, has to get the players that are needed to be competitive and win at this level, to be competitive at the top of the Big Ten standings, not down in the bottom of the Big Ten standings, not a 99 ranked Ken Palm team, which is absolutely atrocious. Their next loss will knock them out of the top 100. That is unbelievable. Where's Louisville, by the way, in Ken Palm? I'll have to look and see, but
they're in the 200s. They're not. I know for some reason you like to act like Indiana's close to being in that same. They are not anywhere close to that Louisville.
No. I'm not pretending that, because they've won too many games that are.
They did get a win against Florida State over the weekend, which was surprising to say the least.
Yeah, and they're just close, so I use them kind of as an example for that reason as well. But
2 minutes
again. This is going to be the biggest, most important this offseason in Woody's tenure, because he has to do what he has to do, and that is get the talent that he needs to win. But then it's going to be on him as well. So it's all on him from here out. But that's going to, man, what a fun day as always. Great to have Greg with us. From ISC Sports Network. As always, make sure you go there to keep up with all the things that are happening in Indiana high school athletics as the basketball tournaments are going on. Don Fischer as well, always grateful to have him aboard. Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star, and Travis Miller from Boiler Upload. Most importantly, thanks to you guys. Without you, we have no reason to be here, and we're grateful that you join us each and every day. Hit that subscribe button if you're listening and following us on YouTube. Otherwise, hello to everybody down on the river, ESPN 97, The Ref. Always the right call. 1380 The Fan up in Fort Wayne. 12:30 a.m. 104.7 FM WJOB in the region as well, up in Chicagoland and Hammond. So hello to everybody there as well. Big thanks to John for keeping us between the white lines. We're back tomorrow to do it all again. Of course, Mike DeCourcy, Chronic Hoosier, and what else we can get. We forgot to bring you Mike Woodson and
it's all right. I saw somebody in the comments say Woodson's not a good listen, so maybe they're happy we didn't play Woody.
Well, we'll play it tomorrow anyway, just because of that, just to hear what was said. We ran out of time for that, sorry, but we'll get back to it tomorrow. But thank you guys so much. Go out and have yourselves a great day. Enjoy this weather for February. It's unbelievable. I'm Jim Coyle. Until tomorrow, I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.